What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, a big shout out to Colin Turner for hitting the super chat. We are joined by Quantum Eraser, Slick James Johnson, Sleeping Warrior, Paul, Mac, Ebon Kim, Chris, Chocolate Sane, Arwin, and 10th Man. Very good to have you all.
Good morning.
Hello.
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 Good afternoon.
Hello. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. We didn't do any last show because there was good conversation going on when we started from the pre-show, but any signs of curvature?
Nope.
No.
No? Any evidence of axial rotation?
Nope.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Of what?
Scientific evidence of gravity? Anybody?
Only pseudoscience.
Shout out to Travis.
What about any evidence of a gas pressure existing next to a vacuum without a container, the necessary antecedent for gas pressure?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's good, yeah.
Hey, Ranty Flat Earth, how you doing?
How do?
Will there ever be?
Evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Hold up, so much weight for this one. Must be someone, somewhere, gone further than 12k, right? Surely.
I saw a beautiful animation about that earlier, but I don't think that was necessarily proof.
No, you'd be right about that. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, don't they have like an image that they made from data? Just kidding.
You tell me.
But
Diagrams.
no.
Diagrams prove it, Nathan.
No, they don't.
Volcanoes.
Right, let's move on.
Guys,
Any
I
evidence?
had a picture in my second grade Earth Science book, so you guys are all wrong.
Yeah, they certainly teach it. We know that much. They teach about the molten iron core, but there isn't actually any evidence of there being any molten iron core. It's just a presupposition based on a just so story about the presupposition of a sphere Earth in a presupposed vacuum travelling around a sun at the centre of that presupposed universe, had another planet on a collision course with the presupposed spherical Earth. And that was also a presupposed sphere called Theia. And the presupposed Theia smashed into the presupposed Earth and deposited its molten iron core, making the Earth's molten iron core, which no one's ever seen and there is no evidence of, extra large, so that the mathematics for why it hasn't cooled down in their timeline works. Well, the debris from this explosive force of Theia hitting Earth caused debris that coalesced into the moon. And that story is beautiful and made up by the people who give us the heliocentric system. There is absolutely no evidence of it whatsoever. However, that is the beautiful story of the molten iron core at the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth?
Yeah,
I
it's all
think
just not.
I saw that episode on the History Channel.
I think it's funny how hydrogen is supposed to be like the first element, but it overcome the vacuum to coalesce to form other elements. That's a pretty fantastic story. A gas overcoming a vacuum.
So what came first, the gravity or the spheres?
See how the ontological primitives are a
Because
natural...
apparently gravity can manipulate land to become a sphere. So the gravity is just in the air. Oh wait, that's the bending of space-time, right? Oh, my bad.
Just want to point out to you, Chocolate, that your question nicely summarises just how relevant the ontological primitives are. How did this all begin, we ask ourselves, and then get criticised for not talking about flat Earth when we discuss the ontological primitives, and they are directly related to this subject.
Right. I have an unrelated question.
Well, there's just a couple more housekeeping questions, and then whatever you like will go.
Housekeeping.
We're nearly done. Any evidence of the presupposition of the R value itself? Earth radius?
No. No.
No evidence of R?
No,
Last but not
no.
least, and I intentionally left this till last, any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun for us to measure?
I've no idea. Any evidence of the distance to the light in the sky we should all praise?
Is there some is it physical, tangible? Can we measure it?
No, it's not tangible. It is intangible. Any evidence of the distance to that intangible object in the sky?
They used.
It is where it is.
I'm sorry, I don't worship the SUN. I'm sorry.
It's funny that ballers used to cite this as one of their proofs. But now, because they know that Christine Huygens made two assumptions. One was that the Earth was a sphere to base his maths on, and secondly, that Venus was the same size as Earth. That assumption, now, once we found that out, they don't mention it anymore.
Plus the 20 different times that value has changed anyway. I mean, come on.
That could go down in like, if you were a flat Earth historian, and Anthony was sat at his computer rubbing his hands together waiting for that poor victim to come in and mention Huygens. And then one day, it happened, and he wasn't anywhere near his mic. He spat out his coffee, ran across the room, and said, "Oh, what did you say? Huygens?"
Jumped over the couch.
You can hear it as well if you actually listen to that clip where it wasn't it not Wiggles, it was who was it now?
Was it Phil?
Jimmy. It was
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Jimmy, the one that added line there when he read something. You can hear him say something, and I heard him spit out the word Huygens, and in the background you can hear it's like someone's just roused in the background, and then scramble. You can hear me diving across. It was ace.
Well, now they use a process called parallax in order to measure the distance to the sun.
No, that involves the same process. That's still an application of Kepler's third law, isn't it?
Yep. By the way, we will know evidence of a vacuum of space. Well, not necessarily a container, within 10 years, because they say in 10 years all the helium will be sucked out into outer space, so we won't have anything with helium to make any. Yep, you can just look it up. Just Google it.
What they mean is NASA have used it all, and there's none left. That's what they really mean.
But yeah, you can invest in helium and see if you can make a lot of money out of it. If you can store it somewhere. But basically,
don't worry, because if it runs out, we could just send another manned mission to the moon to mine helium-3, like in the documentary I saw like 10 years ago.
Oh yeah. I'll bet you that they will come up with the excuse of how we get helium after it's all been sucked out into.
We're gonna have to mine it from an asteroid, and it's going to cost $50 trillion, right?
Yeah, we won't have any more helium balloons, but that's good because we'll save the whales.
50 trillion.
Maybe it's their plan to get rid of helium, since helium balloons are such a detriment to their gravity.
Yeah, we'll have nothing floating up into the air anymore. Stupid gases that are lighter than air.
Maybe it's a conspiracy that they want to remove things that float because it destroys their theory of gravity.
Exactly. Every time I ask somebody, where's your force in the helium balloon going up? They don't have an answer.
Yeah.
No, they just want to keep us busy without purpose, do our jobs, have kids, and die, and not cause them any trouble. In other words, it's a control mechanism like most things.
Be good little humans.
Yeah. Don't appreciate your potential or in any way threaten my control and power and money.
Right.
But we're but who can print money? I mean, we can't print money. Only certain people are allowed to print money. Otherwise, it's called counterfeiting.
Yeah, the Bank of England can just make money from nothing.
Yeah, but it's based on something. It's based on the output of the country. That's the presumption. And if they get it wrong, you get inflation. If the country doesn't produce as much work as they've estimated based on the amount of money they've printed, then the amount that it's worth goes down.
Just numbers on a screen, Nate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But what I'm
So
saying is,
I'm gonna presume we're done with housekeeping at this point.
there's an assumption in the conspiracy community that people just, like, I don't know what the word is, but they just decide one day they're going to print a load of money. Well, you know, you end up with some of the underdeveloped countries where they have exactly that, and they end up in a situation with hyperinflation. You know, them carrying around boatloads of money because whoever's in charge has decided, oh yeah, of course we can output 20 billion worth of actual physical work, and they can't. You know, they've got limited resources and they don't. So you end up with hyperinflation. I'm just saying it's not possible to just print money. Yeah, people do it, but there's consequences.
Obama printed trillions, didn't he?
I don't know. I'm not Mr.
Yeah.
Current
Well,
Affairs. in
he
that regard.
printed a $1 trillion coin, didn't he? Or was it $1 billion? No, it was $1 trillion. No, he didn't print. They made a $1 trillion coin or something like that.
I'm not. Okay. All right.
25 years.
Yeah,
we'll
so
all have
I
them.
go.
It'll be pocket change.
I was going to ask something real quick. Right. So when we're doing flat Earth observations, I've seen a couple of them done by several different people. I'm going to quote Ranty because I'm more familiar with what he's done so far. So, for example, so we're looking over bodies of water and looking at objects in the distance, right? And at the same time, we don't know what the terrain actually looks like, but we're assuming that, you know, it's not a globe, right? And how do we know that, you know, there are no elevations to what we're looking at? For example, like if we have a flat room with like a perfectly flat floor and we pour sand in on that floor, there are going to be certain areas on that surface that are going to be raised higher than other areas, right? So presuming we're small enough to be able to make the same observations that we're making right now on Earth, wouldn't that mean that there's certain areas that are going to appear lower than other areas? Not necessarily because the Earth is a globe, but just because there's different elevations that we're looking at. Do you know what I mean?
That addressed to Ranty.
Well,
It's to everybody. I was just using Ranty as an example.
Well, you know, I mean, when we say it's flat, you know, it's flat for the most part, except obviously you get terrain that's elevated, obviously. But the best judge of the flatness is over water. It has to be.
Exactly, right. And I presume that that's why most of your observations were done over water, because it's going to uniformly be level. And at the same time, like if it's an ocean that you're looking at or certain lakes, it's going to have waves on it that might obstruct what we're looking at in the distance. So I'm just wondering, you know, we're saying that it's perfectly flat. And in that kind of scenario, I understand why the ballers are saying that we should be able to see everything in the distance, because if there's no.
No, I disagree completely, and I'll tell you. I'll just list a couple of reasons why. Firstly, in a laboratory, right, when you're in a lab, you can get a fish tank and you can put some water in it, and then you can look at one side to the other. Yeah, because it's not having any
Anthony,
outside
losing feedback.
It's not having any external forces put upon it. However, when you're looking across a river or a lake or over an ocean, you've got an awful lot of disturbance going on there. That water is not stationary; it is moving, and it doesn't matter whether it's only moving a millimeter. That will still cause obstruction,
Right.
eventually.
Yeah, and we need to take that into consideration. But what I'm suggesting is that, for example, if we're looking at a building or a group of buildings, like the Toronto skyline, for example, and it appears lower than where we're observing it from, could the explanation for that be that it's at a lower elevation than we are, as opposed to refraction or obstruction? Could it just be that it's perhaps lower than where we are?
As in globe-like.
No, I don't mean in the sense of globe-like. I just mean that it's perhaps in a valley or a dip of some kind.
Just like
Okay,
a lower elevation.
Can I just answer
you mean?
that? No, because if it was,
No,
then
yeah.
the water would flow into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, good point. But there are no circumstances where land is lower than sea level.
Yeah,
Is
there's
there no
places in the
circumstance
States,
like
they have
that?
to have big
Well,
levees.
yeah, of course. There's where I live. We have a
Big
sea wall
levees.
around us. So at high tide, we are protected by the sea wall. If there wasn't the sea wall there, Blackpool would be enveloped with water. Yeah. So we have to have the sea wall to protect us from the incoming tide. So it's built up, and I'm sure that we'll need to build it higher at some time in the future. But yeah, I mean, so Blackpool is lower, than the high tide, for sure.
Exactly. So that's what I'm stating here. I'm saying that if I'm looking at some buildings in Blackpool and I'm across on shore, isn't it going to look lower just because it's at a lower elevation as opposed to refraction or looming or any of that stuff?
I mean, if it's enclosed with something, for sure, of course, yeah. Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it?
It is obvious. I was just trying to think of a different explanation as to why stuff appears lower in the horizon.
Super looming compression. Didn't you know that? Come on.
That's nonsense, though. I'm looking for the logical, reason why it's actually happening.
Super duper looming.
I think
Super duper looming compression.
one of
There you
the
go.
God, because is everyone's memory that short? Slightly looming, non-standard refraction hyena.
We haven't said it in a while, Nathan. We missed that.
I think one of the main things we need to look at is the topography of the land that's underneath the water, because it's like, let's suppose you're like, we're looking at a river now, yeah, on the screen. There's a river there. If somebody threw a boulder in that stream right now, in that river, as the water washes over it, it would cause a wake at the top. It would cause an obstruction, and that water is moving, but it will cause a hump above the rock. It's the same with the oceans. If you know the topography of the land with the incoming and the outgoing tides, all that pressure going over certain areas where it's lumpy and bumpy and hilly underneath the water is going to cause localized bulging in that particular area.
Right, but the surface of the topography of the water wouldn't matter, because the river is not going to matter, because the water is just going to conform to that shape anyway. So how is it gonna?
So you're saying that you've never thrown a rock into a river and seen the water wash over it?
I have.
So that's the same effect as what's happening with the tides. It's called, you can look it up, barotropic tides, for instance, and we've even had a dialogue with a professor that admits that it raises it several centimeters, artificial bulges during barotropic tides. And that's especially around places like New Zealand and stuff like that have barotropic tides. And that's just one effect. That's just one tidal effect. That isn't all the tidal effects. So it does cause localized bulging in certain areas where these barotropic tides, all of the deep water pushing up against the slope into the shallows, is going to cause an artificial bulge.
Right, and that only applies to moving water, right? Not still water.
Yeah, I mean that's why I would suggest the best time to do any observations is dead low tide or dead high tide, because that way you've got an equilibrium between the tides. You know, you've got no pushing, no pulling, but you've only got a very short window to do it. So anytime that you see any kind of obstruction, water obstruction on boats and stuff, it's worth looking at where it was taken and checking out the topography of the land, what type of tides it was, what time of day was it, because I'm sure that there is explanations in that particular field. It's something that I'm going to look into this year anyway.
Right. And yeah, I perfectly understand what you're saying, that like a small wave can obstruct something that's larger in the distance. And the horizon also does have that blocking effect because it's rising to our eye level. But what I'm wondering, though, with some of the observations that I've seen, including yours, is that we do see certain things appearing to drop behind the horizon line. But when we look further back, we don't see anything else. Like, for example, if I'm looking at the Toronto skyline, why is it that I can't see the rest of the city behind it? You know what I mean? Like, why is it that I'm only able to see like the facade of the buildings, but I can't see what's going on behind it?
Where would you be doing this observation from? I'll have
Did
a
you
little
say
look now, and I'll just
facade?
see if I can.
I personally haven't done the observation. I'm just looking at observations that have already been done by other people.
The facade?
Hey, Chris, real quick before you continue, can I just ask you a quick question? And I don't want you to be offended by this, but are
Go
you
ahead.
a glober? Are you a glober pretending to be a flat earther?
No.
Okay, no, thank you.
Are you recently converted to flat Earth from globe?
Oh no, I've been in flat Earth for almost 4.5 years now.
Oh, interesting. You're
Yeah.
very good at posing devil's advocate questions then.
Well, I mean, isn't that the point of this whole thing? We're
Absolutely.
not in an echo chamber. We're trying
Yeah.
to, you know, we're
Yeah.
trying to understand what we're looking at here. So it's only fair to look at both arguments and
Okay.
not just.
I've got a question. Let me ask you a question. What's your
Sure.
position on the stars? Do the stars prove axial rotation?
I do know that we see movement, but as far as what's causing that, we don't know what's causing it, and that would require presuppositions based on what I learned about the scientific method earlier on. So I'm not going to say that it's axial rotation or whatever it is that's causing that to happen.
So Tim Osman, or Dim Osman as I like to call him, he claims that the star rotation points prove axial rotation. I disagree with Tim. I think he's talking rubbish, because if you're going to claim that there's an axial rotation, we need to see the axis, right? We need to see the thing that's rotating around itself. Now, if it's supposed to be Earth's axial rotation, we need to see the Earth's axial rotation. Would you agree with me?
I do. And the fact that we see the same stars over such a long period of time, considering all the movements that, our solar system apparently is making, that also disproves that claim as well.
Well,
unless we're not moving at all.
Have you got something to add to that, Anthony? If not, I'll point something out.
Yeah, go on, Nathan.
Well, it's the same logical fallacy as you came in with, ironically. Is it ironically? Coincidentally. So you pointed out about the weighing things, and I said it's an affirming the consequent. Well, this is the same logical fallacy. So when the assertion is made that the axial rotation is proved by the star rotations, what they essentially say is, if the Earth is a sphere, then we will observe north and south hemisphere star rotation. We observe north and south hemisphere star rotation, therefore the Earth is a sphere. So the fallacy is, if P, then Q, therefore P. If the Earth is a sphere, P, then we will observe rotation of the stars in the north and south hemisphere, Q. We observe rotation of the stars in the north and south hemisphere, Q, therefore the Earth is a sphere. Well, with it, the key word they use to give it away is hemisphere. So we will observe rotation in the north and south hemisphere. So we're already on a bloody sphere in this example then.
Right.
They also think that star. Oh, hold on a second. They also think that the stars rotate in different directions. Like in the north, they rotate from east to west, and in the south, west to east.
Yeah, that's not right.
Right. And the example that I gave in the previous show, it may have seemed like I did have a presupposition attached to that, but I didn't. I was just looking at the phenomenon that was being observed and trying to determine what the cause was. I didn't realize that the cause needed to be varied in order to make it a scientific experiment. I just thought that
that's the most common mistake.
You gotta wiggle it.
Well, I don't think that's the biggest problem with that. My problem isn't necessarily, they're going to always assert R or G as the cause. That much is a given. But my problem isn't that. My problem is that they don't have a phenomena to begin with. They're asserting that things weigh different at different points, and that claim in and of itself, I think, is bogus. So I don't think they have an observed phenomena to begin with.
Right.
Precisely.
And I'm still having a hard time with that, like not being able to figure out the cause of something if you can observe what the phenomenon is. Like, is it impossible to figure out what's causing something to happen?
No, not at all. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. That's why I said earlier that the sun and its movement is not beyond the realms of science. We just don't know what the cause is. We haven't speculated or come up with a supposition that we can vary to see if we actually can cause that. Not knowing doesn't mean it's outside the realms of science or investigation. In fact, if it was already known, then there wouldn't be any point in investigating it.
Exactly.
But the most important thing in terms of science, which is only interested in the physical and natural world, is do you actually have an observed phenomena? And if the answer to the question of why is this happening and what is actually happening is a man-made device, the number on it is changing, well, then what's your cause of that man-made device and its number changing? Well, man made that man-made device with all its flaws and all of the variables applicable to that device as you move it and all the things I listed on the last show. But that's definitely not an observed phenomena. So in terms of giving us any sort of inkling about what our world actually does, utilizing technology to establish the cause of an effect, that's fine. But claiming that a man-made device is the phenomena is erroneous.
Right. So this may be impossible, but what would you do if you wanted to determine the cause in that scenario?
So
how would you determine what's causing that?
For Lake Ontario was this, by the way? It's just that I've just been doing a little bit of research for that Lake Ontario. That's where you're looking at the Toronto skyline from. And it seems that you've got like between 6 and 8 feet waves across that lake. So let's put it another way. If your observer height was 12 feet above sea level, well, above the lake, let's suppose and you put your tripod 12 feet above the actual lake, and you type those details into Google Earth, right? Into the curve calculator. You're 12 feet above the water, right?
Yeah.
What you're not taking into account is that you've got 8-foot waves that are also in your direct line of sight. So your actual height above the waves or the actual water is only 4 feet.
Right.
So when you're, so you're going to get skewed data. Your data is going to be all over the place. If you type in and you go, oh yeah, right, okay, 100 feet should be missing, and then all of a sudden you realize, well, actually, no, I wasn't 12 feet above the water because there was 8-foot waves out in the, across the lake. When you get a bit further out, those 8-foot waves, they're obstruction. So your actual height above the waves is only 4 feet. So
right.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that you got. And then when you take into account, then you've got the spray that comes off the waves. It's not just the wave that comes over. Then you've got the spray that comes off the wave at the top as the moving around across that entire lake, 20 miles of spray, right? Evaporation, all that kind of stuff is going to be on top of that 8 feet that you've got to look through.
Exactly. And what is the height of the buildings that we're looking at?
But then you've got to take into account the Rayleigh criterion, how much you can actually see at a given angle. What's the weather like? Is it sunny? Is there enough light to actually see the bottom of those buildings? Because if it's not very sunny, if it's overcast, you're not going to get good visibility. There's a whole bunch of stuff, where you can say things are disappearing from the bottom up and the reasons as to why. And I've just listed a few there.
Exactly. One more thing that I wanted to ask you is that what is the height of the skyline that we're looking at? Like what elevation is it at?
What, Toronto? I have no idea. I haven't really looked into it too much.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I totally agree with you 100% that all of those things are going to add to the obstruction that's taking place. I just wasn't sure, whether there are any scenarios that involve areas of land that were lower than sea level that we're looking at, and may perhaps been obstructed for that reason, rather than the other, reasons that you listed earlier.
What was your question to Nathan? What was your question to Nathan before you went off on this tangent?
The question was, what can we do to actually establish the cause of an effect? And I was going to answer, you establish what you presume is the cause and hold all other variables that are potentially changeable constant, controlled variables. And then you vary and manipulate that which you presume is the cause and see if it causes the effect. So you establish what you think causes it, you vary it, and if it causes it, you've established the cause. That's how you do it. That is, in essence, the scientific method.
Right, but I thought that the scientific method was totally against making any kind of presuppositions or assumptions. And if we need to do that, isn't that going to be going against the scientific method?
No.
Your independent variable can't be a presupposition.
It's a supposition. A supposition.
Right.
So your supposition is that your presumed cause will cause the effect, so that you have a way of keeping it consistent. You have two sides to the hypothesis, which is to say that your prediction, the hypothesis itself, proves nothing. The experimentation proves or disproves the hypothesis. And the reason I say proves or disproves is because it's got two sides to it. So in the hypothesis, you will make two statements. One will be, this causes that. The other being, this does not cause that. And if you go forward, perform your experiment, vary the acid level in the water, and it does not cause the boiling, then you validate your null hypothesis. In other words, you invalidate your alternative hypothesis. So it's got two sides of it for that reason. In other words, in and of itself, a hypothesis isn't proof of anything. It's just your supposition. But to presuppose is to say that you will hold one of the variables, presumably the very thing you're trying to prove, as a constant. In other words, it's already been proven in your claimed hypothesis. Well, that's a presupposition. In other words, that which I am trying to prove is already in existence.
Right. So in the scenario of objects appearing to weigh different at different locations, we can say that the phenomenon that we're observing is just that stuff appears to weigh different depending on the location that it's in. And we can assume that it's being caused by gravity. However, we can't vary gravity.
You can assume what's gravity.
That's what I said last time.
Can you repeat that?
What's gravity?
What's gravity? Your gravity is your independent variable.
It's the force that appears to make things drop to the floor.
No, gravity is your independent variable. It has to already be established, and you have to manipulate it. What is gravity?
So the point John's making is that your independent variable must be real. It must be something that you can physically vary and manipulate. So to say, well, this thing that I assume is in existence, that I've mathematically reified, is my cause. Well, how are you going to vary a mathematical reification? You can't. So it's preposterous to assert that this is the cause, because it doesn't bloody exist. That's why I say, what's gravity? Show it me.
Right. Exactly. And what makes you say that it's not real?
Because there's no scientific evidence.
What makes you say that it is real?
Well, just show it me. Show it me right now.
I mean, I don't know if it's real or not. I'm just trying to see how you're getting.
Well, that's how we'd establish if it's real. That's the answer to your question, though, isn't it? If it's real, you can show it me.
You want us to prove non-existence?
Aberration.
You want us to prove non-existence? The non-existence is the proof of the non-existence.
Yeah, if there's no proof in existence, then it's not in existence. You know, to reverse the burden of proof and say disprove non-existence is an argument from ignorance fallacy. And a burden of proof reversal fallacy. So that's what we always get charged with. So we get told to disprove our mathematical reification of gravity. Hence our reply being, what's gravity? Do you want to show it me?
Right. So if it's not gravity that's causing objects to fall to the ground, and the claim is that it's the weight of what we're looking at or their density that's causing them to fall to the floor.
Relative density.
Relative density. How do we vary that? we can vary the weight of the stuff that we're looking at. And would you say that that's varying the independent variable?
You can very much manipulate the density content of something. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure I'm sure you could offer up a natural phenomena that falls in line with the laws of buoyancy and density in terms of what actually happens. But in terms of validating it scientifically, surely it would just fall into an obvious, this is what's occurring, you just watch it occur. In other words, you're not necessarily needing to establish any cause and effect relationship for a natural phenomena. It kind of just is what it is. And it's accepted on both sides, which is why I kind of see this as a pointless argument. You go to their rhetoric and they'll describe they'll describe relative density, same as we will. The only difference being they'll insert in their Newtonian mathematics a presupposition. But that's it. Other than that, we don't have an argument here. They're not going to disagree with us when we talk about a more dense object displacing a less dense one.
Well, I mean, there is a way of scientifically proving that, I think. If you have objects that are all have a different weight, and you measure, how fast they hit the ground and whether it's a weight that's sort of determining whether that happens or not, you're varying the independent variable, because the independent variable is weight that's causing the objects to fall to the ground, right?
No. How did they get in the air in the first place?
You pick them up.
Oh, well, there's your cause.
Right. So weight is not the cause of
objects falling
to the floor.
Objects falling.
Yeah.
What caused the object to fall again?
A person did.
The difference in density, eventually.
So what? The difference in density caused the object to rise from its neutral position out of equilibrium and then drop. That was caused by an apparition, was it, Arwin? Or was it a man picking it up and dropping it?
No, of course not.
No, but there is a tendency for things to stay to the ground, regardless of whether they're picked up or not.
Wrong. No, wrong. There is a tendency for things to find equilibrium.
Wait, I got it. It's a bird landing.
Sorry, did you hear what I just said, though?
There is a tendency for objects to meet equilibrium.
Yeah, to find equilibrium. And then what happens is people come along, force things out of disequilibrium, and the effect thereafter is then attributed to this force of gravity.
Interesting.
No.
I'm trying to see how all of this applies.
It's an aberration.
Maybe
I was waiting
gravity
for that from
forces
Arwin. I
them
knew
to,
that was going to come right at the end.
It's a very suggestive side effect that just suggests this force to be present there. But yeah, it's very easily modeled, but it's always presupposed. That's really what it comes down to. It just appears to be there. That's why I call it an aberration. Because when you actually get to the nitty-gritty of it and try to get some real scientific proof, it doesn't work. It's
bird
just
landing.
It's an aberration.
Sorry,
bird
you said
landing.
twice now. John,
Real thing.
someone's going to have to give context to bird landing because it's been said twice.
And an easy way to do it by observing nature is to watch either an apple or acorn or something on a tree fall. But again, that's not attributed to gravity, because why don't the other apples and the other acorns fall? It's attributed to weakening of the stem or whatever object's holding that object.
So in this case, the observed phenomenon
is video yesterday, and he featured another guy who claims that Einstein says that gravity is actually Earth moving upwards towards the apple. I was like, this is really a thing. Oh my god!
Speaking of that, did anyone see George Musser's or any sighting of George Musser out there?
No. Any word on George Musser? Anybody?
Riley should sing his song.
Wait, hang on though. So the observed phenomenon here is that things tend to meet equilibrium. But what's causing that though?
But that's not a phenomenon.
Disequilibrium.
Sorry, things.
Equilibrium.
Hold on.
The relative densities are divided. It's in a spectrum.
Hold on. Things being in equilibrium is not a phenomenon. So nothing's happening, right? So we look in this picture. Okay, the tree's moving a little bit because of the wind. Pretty much everything's in equilibrium. Stuff's not falling, right? Nothing's happening. So you tell me in this picture now, what's the phenomena exactly? Are objects finding themselves having a tendency to move towards the ground, generally speaking? No.
Displacement.
No, right. Things tend to be in equilibrium. So what's the phenomena exactly we're studying here? Things not doing anything.
Right, okay.
So let's pick something up, force it out of disequilibrium, drop it, and assert that things have a tendency towards the ground. What was that thing I picked up? Oh, a helium balloon.
Right, so what would you categorize as being a phenomenon?
Something happening. Something happening.
Bird landing.
So
you can only pick up helium balloons in vacuum chambers.
No, they'd be exploded.
I'll give you a valid phenomena. Rumpus starts talking gibberish the minute anybody starts talking about science. That's a phenomena.
It's man-made.
Bird landing.
So on Arwin's show, he had a guest that was, when put in a corner, challenged to come up with a natural phenomena in this regard. I think from memory he went through Cavendish, and at the end, when it was proven that there was no observed natural phenomena, he went to bird landing as his natural phenomena. And nevertheless, it was very amusing at the time.
He's a scientist. He was a scientist.
Claimed scientist. A lot of these people claim to be scientists.
The most natural, we get all of that from Newton with the apple falling. That's the story, but he could use that.
Yeah, ignoring
that's as natural a phenomena of gravity as they can probably use.
Well, yeah, that's right. Where they managed to get the object in what appears to be disequilibrium, ignoring all the energy required to get it into that position in the first instance, taking a snapshot in time where, as you put it, the stem breaks, and saying, ha! Objects have a tendency towards the ground. Again, easily explained by the fact that it's more dense than the air it's about to travel to, and has been forced into that position by the virtue of the tree growing. But that will all be ignored.
Yep. One thing I wanted to show you real quick is NASA won't stop with Apophis and tracking Apophis, which is an asteroid or a meteor that will be really close to the Earth on April 13th, which will be a Friday the 13th in 2029. This is the trajectory that it's going to have. That's the closest part. Now, this was 2 days ago, both these videos. And I'm not going to play the video. I'm just showing you the snapshots. And here, you'll see in yellow, that's the tracking of the Apophis. And the purple is the ISS. And you can see how it's really close to Earth, and all these light blue dots, they're orbiting satellites. And so when I've wondered, well, how come the ISS orbits so close and they don't allow it to go further out in orbit? Well, Forbes wrote an article where they took an answer from Robert Frost, who's trained ISS astronauts to operate the motor system. He says, well, the Russian cargo vehicle and crew transfer vehicle Soyuz are only certified to fly to 460 kilometers. That's the number one reason. But number 4 reason, it says above 500 kilometers, the Van Allen belts increase the amount of radiation significantly. So it says also a quick trip through the Van Allen belts, such as that performed by each of the Apollo missions, is fairly safe, but keeping the vehicle within those belts for extended periods exposes the crew and hardware to unacceptable levels of radiation. Apollo missions aside, we could go into that later too.
Well, not unless they didn't know about it, so it didn't affect them, or they just go real fast and go through them according to which astronaut you want to talk to.
Yeah.
What are the Van Allen belts exactly?
If you go above 500 kilometer, they will above 500 kilometers, the Van Allen belts radiation affects the crew and the hardware to unacceptable levels of radiation. That's why they don't. That's one of the 4 reasons.
I'm confused, Yvonne. Sorry, you said if I go what? Sorry.
What did I say?
I said what are the Van Allen belts, and your answer was if you go above. What was it you said exactly? Something about me doing something.
Oh, I didn't mean specifically you. I meant you as in the whoever goes
the
up
royal
there.
you.
So, do you want to rephrase that then slightly? Because I'm very confused, Ibon.
If the ISS or any object goes above 500 kilometers, and we're going to include their satellites pretty soon.
Sorry, any object. Now I'm really, really confused. You said any object, and then you've specifically said their satellites.
I'm reading from the article.
Just play along. I'm not having a go, Ebon. Just play along.
Oh.
You think I'm having a go at you here, and I'm not.
Yeah, he is.
Cruise
Go ahead,
or
get him,
hardware.
So again, let's just try that one more time. So, what are the Van Allen belts exactly?
You got to recognize Nathan's leading questions. You got to.
It's a bit like the last guy when we said, "What's gravity?" So now I'm saying, "What are the Van Allen belts?"
Here, we'll go ahead and Google it, mate.
Okay, let's do that. Let's see what we get.
Okay, this is Van Allen belts by space.com. See. It says 2 giant swaths of radiation known as the Van Allen belts surrounding Earth were discovered in 1958. In 2012, observations from the Van Allen probes show that a third belt can sometimes appear. The radiation is shown here in yellow, with green representing the spaces between the belts.
So Mr. Van Allen sent up his special probes, and Mr. Van Allen discovered these Van Allen belts with his probe that he sent up to a second law of thermodynamics violation. Is that correct?
Correct.
So are we sure these exist? Are we certain of this?
That's what they say exists.
Oh, they say it. Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So Ebon, 1958, they said this was discovered?
Yeah.
So, but like, we still had astronauts that didn't know about it?
Yeah.
After coming back from the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
really?
Yeah, this
So
is the now that that's
in the
been
briefing?
highlighted. So yeah, I don't want chocolate to nick your point now, Ebon. So now that's been made clear to the audience, you can now use it as a hostile witness to point out the nonsense. It's just without me doing that you can leave in the audience's mind some sort of assertion that there might actually be these belts, that they're not just made up. But now you can point out with their own narrative where their narrative's nonsense, without anybody being left in the slightest bit under the illusion that we have this nonsense. Just that's the reason I did that, just so you're clear. I'm sure you are anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
This looks like super looming compression to me. Go back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's super looming compression right there. And you also said satellites, right? How many satellites were there?
That's what I wanted to focus on, because
satellites?
they have a lot of satellites. And this is from NASA's Earth Observatory.nasa.gov. They've got satellites not just in low orbit, but mid-Earth orbit and high Earth and geosynchronous orbit, which is that's way more than 500 kilometers. And those don't seem to have any unacceptable levels of radiation.
I know why.
I mean, those.
Go on, John.
I know why. Let me share my screen. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to show you why. Right?
Okay.
Sure.
Tell me when it's up.
Yeah, you'll need to give me about 30 seconds.
All right.
Okay.
Let me know when it's up.
Yeah, got this helium balloon on screen.
Yeah, that's why. There's your satellites. Here, let's take a closer look at this. That's why. See where they're at? See where they start at?
Is that Nevada? Where are they?
There's another one. That's a pretty one.
No, that was Australia.
That's another one. Another one of their satellites. Ooh, that's a nice one.
Give another Robert Pisano plug.
I will, just in 1 second. Let's take a look at these.
Does anybody still have the YouTube clip of the news report of the satellite crash through
No,
balloon?
but I can tell people where to locate it. So that's on Mark Sargent's channel. I think it's called, if you type into Google search or YouTube search, Brazil satellite balloon crash. And that'll take you to Mark Sargent's video. It's just a, unfortunately, horizontal iPhone video of somebody filming a satellite with a tattered balloon crashed.
Yeah, and 3 years ago, Robert Bassano and I went over this. He had a complete list from the Astronomy Space Center of all the satellite launches over like 15 or 20 years. Mir, NASA, all kinds of them, all balloon launches. So there's your satellites. Thanks.
But my
Ebon,
orbit.
Ebon, I must say, you are quite the journalist, guy.
Thanks.
I
It's
completely
I'll second
agree.
that.
Ibon should have a squillion subs. You know,
I second
I'm
that,
often
yeah.
in awe of your channel, Ibon. You're better at this than I am, and you've got hardly anybody watching you. Go and immediately subscribe to Ibon Kim. He's got a really good channel. Can you spell out your name and plug your channel, Ibon?
Yeah, it's EBON space KIM. Live streaming there has been copyright striked, so my backup channel is Tequila Mockingbird. But if you just go to my main channel, it'll have link to my backup channel on YouTube. I also stream elsewhere, and you guys are great. I just question things and just look into it and just try to find the official narrative or the official explanation and just break it down from there.
Did you look into Soundly's Causeway Bridge? I'm gonna have to share my screen again. You look into that?
Are you going to trigger
Nope,
Anthony
I'll-
to talk about his subject, aren't you? Now you've got
Oh,
him at the end.
I already
What
brought up
what
George
about
Russell
Sally's
earlier,
Bridge?
right? Well, I'm going to get to that here in a second. But have you looked into the facade of
What about Soundly's
Causeway
bridges?
Bridge?
Anybody? Anybody looked into
Anybody?
it? Anybody?
No.
Did Soundly shit his bridges?
Are you talking
take a
about
look at this.
Soundly's bendy bridge?
Yeah. Oh, we have got.
Yeah.
we've got- yeah. So somebody knows about it. Excellent.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
it
is this up
before.
on the screen?
No, but it will be. Yeah. Google Earth.
So everyone see this, right?
No, the people. You'll need to go to the Hangout if you want to watch this on the panel. Unfortunately, Skype doesn't share well in Hangout.
Let's take a look at this. So Soundly's Causeway Bridge had some serious curvature. They spent a lot of time down there. I think Jesse Kozlowski even made a star appearance down here and did some measurements. I don't know that for sure. It's just something I heard through the grapevine. So Lake Pontchartrain Bridge or Causeway had some serious curvature, right? Huh. Let's take a look at this. If it was curving, right? Isn't the Baltard spinning space monkey religion go off of one of their tenets as every point along a tangent from your feet drops away from you at 8 inches per mile squared? Am I correct in that?
That's absolutely correct. They would assert that there's a drop value, and that as you look out into the distance, the sphere Earth, given that you are on the top of it, drops away from you at 8 inches per mile squared.
That's very interesting. So we'll take a look at the shore over here. I'm getting 2 feet elevation. Is that vertical drop? Is that 8 inches per mile squared vertical drop?
That's correct. From your position on the top of the alleged presupposed sphere, there is a drop from your position to the other side of wherever you're looking at, because it's dropping in all directions at 8 inches per mile squared. That's the claim.
Right, that's physical drop. We're talking physical drop now. We're not talking any visual stuff.
Yeah, it's
This
a ball.
is actual.
Yeah, it's a ball, John. So it physically drops away from your location on the top of that ball. That's correct. Yes, a drop.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I'm getting 3 feet, 1 foot, 2 foot. Okay, let's go over here. So that's point B. All right. So let's
Wait,
go up to
what's
the
a ball?
northern side.
A sphere.
I know. What's a sphere?
What's a sphere?
What's a sphere? It's a
round.
geometric shape.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
in
we're all
regards to
walking
what?
around on.
Oh, the Earth?
In regards to the
Say
Earth,
Earth
this
is the
program
ball?
claims this is called Google Earth, and it depicts, although be it two-dimensionally, a spherical Earth, a geometric shape.
Right. So we got 3, 2, 3, 4 feet on side B. That's the south side. So we're going up to the north side here, and we're taking a look at the shoreline here, and we're seeing 2 foot. Let's see if I can go. Oh, yeah, it is changing. So 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Huh. How is this bridge curving or dropping when it has the same elevation on both sides? Can somebody explain that to me?
It's not dropping.
So level is flat. So level doesn't equal curve, right?
No, this would be asserting that there is no drop. That it's the
Planet
same.
Poncho Train, guys. Come on.
It's the same elevation on both sides, so there is no drop according to this Google Earth, is it? Yeah, this says there's no drop.
That's what I thought. That's very interesting. That's one of their main proofs, so I don't know. Okay. Any signs of George Musser?
We covered that. I don't think anybody's seen any signs of George Musser. Just double check. Anybody on the panel? Any signs of George Musser?
No.
He has had an interview. He's done a little teaser video where he claims that Musa supports everything that Craig said, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he supports how he claims gravity behaves.
Are we talking about George Netanyahu?
No, George Musser.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Just an in thing at the minute.
I hope not.
Can I just present for a second, Dave? Because I don't want to. Something was mentioned today, and it's like, I think it's really important, actually.
Can you squeeze it? Can you squeeze it? Yeah, you can. I'll stick you up now. Can you squeeze it into 4 minutes?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Excellent. You're on.
Right. This is super, super important. So these things here, we've got the ocean at the bottom. So the blue's the ocean. This red part is just a piece of land at, let's say, 6 feet elevation. And let's suppose somebody's looking at a direct line of sight across this water to an object over in this direction over here. And what we do as flat earthers, we always give an elevation above sea level. So we'll stand next to the water's edge and we'll put our tripod there and we'll say, okay, we're 6 feet above sea level or 4 feet above sea level or something like that. But something occurred to me today when somebody asked the question. Somebody posed the question about Ontario and Toronto skyline. And when you look across these bodies of water, oceans, Great Lakes, things like that, they all have wave heights. Now, the Globers want you to assume that you've just got a direct line of sight 6 feet above sea level. So whereas the tide is only lapping up, say, here at maybe a few inches or so, the further you go into the deeper parts of the lake or the ocean, these wave heights can get to 3, 4, 5, or 6 feet in elevation. So let me just show that what would happen then if you put in things like this in. Let's suppose we've got an elevation of 6 feet here, and we've got 4 feet wave heights in the center of the ocean. What is the elevation above actual sea level? Is it 6 feet that we're claiming stood next to the water's edge? Or by virtue of the fact that we can't see through the waves because they're at a 4 feet elevation, shouldn't our elevation above sea level just be 2 feet as opposed to 4 feet? As opposed to 6 feet? Is it something that we should look into as flat earthers? Because, you know, they want us to work on this this flatness. They want us to work on the flatness. They don't want us to include the tide heights. But what I'm finding, even in the, you know, just from a basic research today, everywhere has tide height, wave heights, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. You've got to take them off. You've got to take them off because that is blockage.
Yeah, you're right. The wave heights is input. Yeah, it's a factor that needs to be considered, and they don't do it. That's another thing to add to the perspective list that's not on the curve calcs.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you only need a small-ish wave in the mid-foreground and something that's vastly reduced in size because it's in the far distance, and the thing in the mid-foreground can obscure it. That's an effective perspective. I mean, this seems so silly to be covering this. For any Brits watching who've seen Father Ted, when he has to explain to the sub-80 IQ pastor that this cow is small, toy cow, and that cow is far away, big cow, real cow, in a field. Now, when you hold the small, close cow up to the window, you can literally obscure the big, far-away cow. Now, this concept's really simple to understand and entirely ignored by the curve calculations because they use only actual sizes. So in this instance, when you use the cow example, the cow is always going to be, let's say it's 1.6 meters high. It's always going to be 1.6 meters high, and it doesn't matter if you're standing next to that cow or that cow is 30 miles in the distance. It's still 1.6 meters high. Therefore, there is no reduction of angular size, apparent size, what you actually see as it moves further in the distance. So the calculators have the target size remain constant, regardless of its distance. And then the only thing that's happening is Earth is either rising up between you and it to obscure your view of it, or it's sinking down along the curve as it gets smaller with distance. But as I say, the whole number, the actual size number, the feet and inches or meters value, ignores the change in size as it gets further away. This cow is small, that cow is far away. That's ignored. So a curved wave that's small in the near foreground or midground can obscure a big but small in apparent size building that's very far away and close to the horizon because it's reduced in size. Angular size, not actual size. So yeah, it's very easy for a very small wave in the close to you to obscure a very big building that's far away. That's perspective.
Yeah, I just
Birdland.
Birdland.
Sorry, go ahead.
Round out your point, Ranty.
No, I just think that moving forward, you know, anybody that does observations in future must always look into the height of the waves on that particular day and subtract them from their observation, because literally it makes absolute sense that this will artificially put you higher. You know, you need to take the wave height off. You have to, because you can't say you're 6 feet above the water if it's on a flat plane and then you've got 4 foot waves that you're trying to look over, because that wouldn't make any sense. You've got to subtract the height of the waves and include that into your observation. And I'm sure that at some points there could be 8 feet waves and you could have your camera set up at the side that's only at 3 feet. In actual fact, you'd be looking upwards over the wave, like so. You'd have to subtract the wave height.
And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, then a huge, massive, enormous thank you for tuning in, sharing, subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. Also a massive thank you to today's debating panel for making this debate possible. If you need to keep yourself occupied after this live stream is over, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!